Joanna deftly packed her travel bag while her husband lounged on the couch, relaxing after a long day at work. "It's a shame we couldn't take this trip together," she lamented, "but perhaps we'll have the opportunity in the future." Joanna had decided to take this vacation with her dear friend Cindy. Due to conflicting schedules, her husband couldn't take time off at the same time. She was eager for a much-needed break. Joanna wasted no time in convincing Cindy to join them. Her workplace had been in a state of flux over the past few months, with the departure of several specialists and the redistribution of workloads among those who had been retained. Hiring new staff was a slow process, leaving her no choice but to soldier on, and taking a vacation seemed out of the question at the moment. However, Joanna was not easily discouraged by such circumstances. She possessed a resilient spirit and immediately sought solutions to any obstacles that came her way. She and Cindy chose a hotel and secured their tickets. The day flew by. It seemed like only moments had passed. Joanna and her friend were vacationing at an upscale hotel in Miami. She sent beautiful photos from Miami Design District, Dolphin Mall, with a happy and carefree smile from a yacht sailing to Raccoon Island. Adam was in constant communication with his wife every day, which helped bridge the distance between them. His busy work schedule also kept his mind occupied. Upon Joanna's return, the couple decided to have a celebratory dinner at a local diner. As they toasted to reuniting, Adam couldn't help but notice that Joanna looked sun-kissed, completely rejuvenated, and more relaxed than usual. Clearly, the vacation had done wonders for her. A week quickly returned them to their routine. Joanna went back to work, which meant that the couple's interactions were limited to brief mornings and evenings. One day, Adam finished work early and found himself at the apartment door earlier than usual. As he fished out his keys, a voice unexpectedly broke his concentration, and as he turned, his eyes widened in amazement at the sight of a young man holding an enormous bouquet of flowers. "Hello, is this apartment number 50? I have a lovely bouquet for Joanna. Do you mind if I give it to you?" he asked. Puzzled, as he rifled through the flowers looking for a note, Adam took a bouquet of snow-white lilies and went inside. Joanna herself had returned home. A Taylor Swift song was playing loudly in the house. Joanna was still in her office suit. "The courier brought you a bouquet of flowers," her husband remarked. He watched her reaction for a moment, thinking Joanna recognized the sender. But her surprise was the same as his when she considered the unexpected surprise. There must be some kind of mistake. "It's not my birthday," she said. "But the courier gave your name and an apartment number." Her husband objected. "Adam, I really have no idea. If they bother you, you can leave them alone. I can't even imagine who they could be from." Her husband was seized with anxiety and concluded that it was necessary to monitor his wife closely. Just a few days after observing another oddity, Joanna began lingering on her cell phone, constantly sending messages to someone. Whenever her husband inquired, she deflected his questions by mentioning that she was chatting with her friends. But strangely, she never put down her phone. Before, she would casually leave it on any table. One afternoon, Adam, driven by curiosity, decided to snoop around while Joanna was in the shower. He searched her phone, but found no evidence. However, one curious detail did emerge. She hadn't texted her friends in days, so who had she been fervently communicating with? Recently? Coincidentally, the mystery unraveled. One evening, Joanna was busy in the kitchen cooking dinner while Adam sat at the computer, engrossed in reading. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, as they weren't expecting anyone. Adam walked to the door, a mixture of confusion and curiosity on his face. A stranger, dressed in elegant suit, stood on the threshold, holding a bouquet of flowers. Adam's gaze was drawn to the flowers, white lilies, just like the ones the courier had mistakenly delivered. The courier had mistakenly delivered them to their apartment not long ago. The newcomer smiled sweetly and spoke quickly in French. Adam got the gist of it when he realized that the man was asking for permission to talk to Joanna. Oddly enough, he called Adam brother. "And who might you be?" Adam replied, remembering his years of study and languages. "I'm her boyfriend." The man replied, showing a photo on his cell phone in which he and Joanna were on the beach. She was adjusting her hat and, remarkably, her wedding ring was missing from her ring finger. "Yes, my wife had a great rest in this place," the husband thought. He called her from the kitchen and asked her to come over. It was very tempting to see how she would get out of this predicament. Gina came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel and, muttering under her breath, she shifted her gaze from the stranger with the flowers to her husband. "Joanna, your admirer is standing in front of you and longs for your presence," her husband announced. Obviously, the foreigner was very happy to see her, but the woman herself paled noticeably when the man approached to give her flowers. She instinctively stepped back. "Adam, please tell me, who is this man?" "I don't know him," she said carefully. The foreigner continued his rapid speech, pausing for a moment at the woman's hands, where he noticed the absence of the ring that had once been on them. Then his gaze shifted to Adam's hands, which allowed him to put two and two together and put an end to his previous friendliness. He became extremely angry and began shouting at Joanna, throwing flowers on the floor. Unexpectedly, the woman somehow managed to calm the agitated foreigner to some extent, although her efforts were mostly in vain. As the man's anger subsided and he continued to make a scene before finally leaving the apartment, Adam turned to his wife. She had a pale, confused look on her face, but even so, she refrained from dismissing the whole incident as a simple misunderstanding. The reality was obvious. She had begun a holiday affair. Her lover did not know that she was married, and perhaps he had been charmed by her charm, or something else had come to surprise her. Previously, he had sent her flowers and written letters, but Joanna had already returned to the image of a devoted wife, which made these manifestations of love seem somewhat inappropriate when she met her husband's gaze. She turned to him with a final plea. "Adam, please forgive me. Things got out of hand. We were having a drink, and he asked me to dance," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I now see the reason for your preference for text messages over phone calls." It was Cindy who replied, wasn't it? He remarked with a hint of sarcasm. Struck by the realization, she remained silent, understanding that this approach was also very futile. "Just go, gather your things and leave," Adam said. The sharpness in his voice surprised her. "Well, actually, I have rights to this place too," she retorted, her tone shifting from pitiful to assertive. "Everything settled legally." "You've got 10 minutes," he countered, tapping his watch impatiently, noticing that her typically composed husband was beginning to boil with anger. Joanna knew better than to push him any further. She quickly packed her essentials and left the apartment, leaving the escalating tension behind. Adam learned from a neighbor that his wife had stormed out of their home and frantically began asking people in the yard about the man in the suit who had recently exited through the same entrance. Apparently, she decided to take her chances with the stranger, but Adam had a hunch it wouldn't work out for her. Despite the awkward situation, the man felt relieved to be able to expose his partner's true character now, rather than in another decade of marriage. Who knows how many more such strangers she might have pursued over the years.